Comparison price for Wednesday, December 18th, 2024, coming to you from the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee here at the historic Wall Center. In this show, a presentation of Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Matt Sakaris alongside collapser of cardboard Blake Price, four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson hitting switches and conducting things. It is the holiday season. There will be boxes. There will be cardboard. Blake and I had a bonding moment yesterday. We're both pretty dutiful collapsers of cardboard. As soon as that box is done, it's flattened. It's in the paper recycling.
How you recycle is a snapshot.
Exactly.
Of how organized a person you are.
Mm-hmm. And Blake, I'd like to think over the 13 years that we've done this show that we've shown ourselves to be, modern men, believers in equality, gender equality, equal pay, equal work.
There are certain gender lines that are...
There are certain
irrefutable
areas that, why don't they collapse cardboard? I am responsible for the cardboard recycling in my household. I'm sure you are at yours as well. We keep ours in a box or a bag atop the fridge. Reach on up. Every single time, an avalanche of uncollapsed cardboard boxes rains down.
And does paper go in the blue bin with the plastics and the metals, Matthew?
It sure doesn't. I've talked to her about this. I've asked her about it. I've even, at the risk of mansplaining, offered a helpful narrated demonstration.
Oh, I'm sure that went over well.
Believe it or not, I didn't have full attention.
Shocking.
Anyways, good luck on your cardboard collapse, because this is the week you've been waiting for, right? Your whole year of collapsing cardboard training leads up to next week.
My house is the staging area. You do have to make an additional trip to the recycling depot, curbside, because you get the postponements, right? Because of the holidays.
Right.
And so it's just not enough. You got to go to the depot.
Yeah, well, and we have a couple of neighbors downstairs, and we have a good number of those yellow recycling, including the extended long ones.
Oh, good. It's important.
So pretty much week to week, I've got space.
Happy holidays, folks. This is what you have to look forward to this week.
Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. Would you trade one of the Canucks' top prospects, and we're talking Jonathan Lekramacky or Tom Wielander here, for Sabres defenseman Byrum, former Vancouver Giant from Cranbrook, British Columbia? You can vote yes. You can vote no. Do so at the Sakaris Price X and YouTube channels. If you're voting yes, tell us specifically which one and why. First crack, Blake Price.
I am not. I like Byrum. I don't love Byrum. And the crying shame here is, at one point I did. Like I covered a lot of his tournaments, under 17s, under 18s. Like I followed him a lot coming up the ranks, and I thought he was going to be a handful. And you know what? He would probably tell you that he is still going to be a handful. He's just been a little bit hidden. I mean, he is right there, right behind Dahlin and Power. They are, I think, 4, 5, 6 in Sabres scoring right now. Like, they are right beside each other. Maybe he can still be the rambunctious offensive player that I saw as a junior, but it looks like, his impact offensively is going to be a little bit more muted at the NHL level. Like, I thought he was going to be maybe a 60-point defenseman. Doesn't look like that's going to be. And with guys like Hughes and Makar sort of showing what you need to look like to be a 60-point plus defenseman, I don't think he's necessarily that. And I don't think defensively he's stout enough for me to pass up what is probably going to be at least an equal player in Tom Wielander. And with Tom Wielander, you'll get an ELC. You'll get that play potentially for pennies on the dollar compared to what you're going to have to pay Bowen Byrum going forward.
Now, that's a big what if still, Blake.
Yep.
Tom Wielander is looking like a good prospect. If I can just counterpoint
on the
here,
right side versus left side.
On the right side, fair enough, although Byrum has played some on the right side. Tom Wielander doesn't figure to be a big offensive driver. In fact, I think he'll probably do well to get to Byrum. A lot of people, when they drafted Tom Wielander, thought he was somewhat of a reach, that they were just looking for a right-shot defenseman. He projects, and we've talked to Cam Robinson and others about this, Dave Hall, he projects as a solid second-pair defenseman who's not going to give you a ton offensively, but going to be a part of your goal prevention core. And that's great. But he's probably not going to be that player for a few years out. NHL defensemen tend to take several hundred games before they really arrive. And one of those examples may well be Bowen Byrum. Byrum is 196 games into his NHL career and would already be much further along if not for some concussions.
Which is
another red flag. Now, I voted yes, and here's why I voted yes. Your window, the Vancouver Canucks, is this year and next year. This is while you have Thatcher Demko, Quinn Hughes on bargain contracts. This is while you still have a most effective JT Miller, who is in his early 30s now, but beyond those 2 years would be moving into his mid-30s. At some point, either this year before the deadline, this summer, or at the very latest next year, I think Jim Rutherford and Patrick Alvin have to, or get off the pot. I would prefer that to be earlier than later to give yourself 2 kicks at the can here, if you will, this spring and next spring. Now, I would, before pulling the trigger on this, of course you want to check out the player medically. For those who are saying he's one hit away, that's correct. It's also correct for a lot of players, right? With concussions. And there was a time when we thought Sidney Crosby's career was jeopardized after a number of concussions, and Sidney has come back to have the flourishing Hall of Fame.
Crosby is the hallmark case of you can sort of bounce back fully from this.
So there's that. There's a few things that I would want to know first if I'm Alvin and Rutherford. The first thing I would do is I would go to Rick Tocchet and Adam Foote and say, guys, can we try this guy on the right side? He has played some right side. I just want a commitment that you guys will see if it works there. And I think Tocchet and Foote would probably oblige with an acquisition of this size. The other thing that I would want to know is how quickly can we get an extension with him, and what would that extension look like? Now, as you've heard, and Darren Dreger's been on our program on Mondays a couple of times saying this throughout the year, that Byrum feels a little bit stifled right now because he's behind Rasmus Dahlin, because he's behind Owen Power on that Buffalo blue line.
Not seeing PP1 anytime soon unless there's injuries.
And nor would he here in Vancouver with Quinn Hughes running the power play. But this is a BC kid who played his junior hockey in Vancouver. I would like to think that he would be far happier here on a good team than being stuck behind 2 young defensemen on a dreadful team in Buffalo. So I would like to think that an extension here is far more doable than extension with Buffalo. And look, if you can't get it done immediately, he's still an RFA with our Brights, so you still have him under club control. And if he doesn't work out on the right side, okay, so be it. So you have a splendid second pair left side defenseman and puck mover to match, to play the minutes below Quinn Hughes. Byrum's playing 23 and a half minutes per night this year, Blake.
Yeah, that's
a lot.
That's helpful.
And here's the other thing. That's without a ton of special teams work. He's usually the second pair defenseman that comes over the board.
Yeah.
On the penalty kill. He's the third most used power play defenseman. So a lot of those minutes are even strength. Look, I would think twice on Lankinen and Wielander. I understand what trading a prospect of that ilk means to this organization. But prospects can also break your heart. And we have them on the show later, our buddy Laurence Gilman. There are two types of teams in the NHL, those trying to get pregnant and those trying to have a baby. The Canucks are now finally pregnant. It's time to get aggressive. It's time to have that baby.
Is another guy RFA to be on a different team? Name hasn't come up as much. Periodically, I have heard the name, not connected to the Canucks, just overall in the trade market. Very similar stats outside of a little bit more offense, particularly last year, but last year was a huge spike. The cost of acquiring Noah Dobson.
Yeah, and you just don't know what Lou Lamoriello is capable of in New York, particularly if the team is floundering. Now, they've been better of late. Did I see that correctly?
They're second last in the division still.
Oh, okay.
They've lost two straight. They're 12 and 14. Only Columbus.
Okay,
behind
but they're 3 points out of a wild card. They got 4 teams to jump, but yeah, I don't. So the acquisition on Dobson would be plus, I think.
Hey, I don't think for Byrum it's just Wielander or just Lankinen.
No, probably not.
You'd probably attach a warm body. You're still probably throwing in a.
Dobson's $4 million with Arbrights.
Yeah.
So he's a little more expensive right now.
Basically.
It's on the same clock, but a natural righty and bigger. So, okay. We're having this discussion in part because the holiday roster freeze takes effect tomorrow evening. Daily Faceoff's Frank Saravelli saying the Canucks are working on a top 4 defenseman. They're looking at puck movers and pure defenders.
Mm-hmm.
We checked in with Dreger, who said nothing close as of this morning, but who knows? Eyes wide open here until tomorrow night. Good tweet from Canucks News Summaries, and I would invite you to follow that account at @VCanucksNews, News, also writing for Canucks Army, who tweets, here's a Bowen Byrum trade proposal from the trades of similar-aged players. Byrum and a 4th for Höglander, a 1st and a 2nd. And let me just say, I would prefer to move Nils Höglander and a first-round pick than Lankinen or Wielander, if that deal can be constructed. Now, that's fair. It's a fair bit of capital to send for Bowen Byrum, and the tweet says they're working on an article that explains reasoning, looking at 7 fairly recent trades as comparable, so that should be a good read. Now, Höglander's value, since we first started talking about Höglander, I think has fallen even more, Blake. We had a poll question a couple weeks ago. It's time to trade Nils Höglander, and a lot of the respondents said yes, because you don't want to see value bleed from there. And guess what? We have seen value bleed.
Yep.
But Höglander a 1st and a 2nd, which is really just a trade down to the 4th if you're getting the 4th back. Höglander a 1st and a 2-round trade down. Would you do that?
Yeah, I just don't think. I don't.
You don't think Buffalo would?
No, I don't think Buffalo does that.
Okay. You've wondered in the past about Chicago defenseman Connor Murphy. He is a natural righty. He is that pure defender stopper that Saravelli notes more than a puck mover.
Yes.
So for me, you acquire Murphy. I think you still need a puck mover because we've seen that weakness.
Ideally, yep.
So the acquisition price on Murphy may be so great you don't want to pay it because it's in
taken away
with
from the
needing
sexier
exactly.
player. Yeah.
But the Canucks have made a number of deals with Kyle Davidson and the Blackhawks, Ilya Mikheyev, Anthony Beauvillier, Jason Dickinson. Murphy has 1 year left on his deal, and I do think having term or being club controlled, i.e. an RFA to be this summer, is important to these guys. Mm-hmm. It was important in the Philip Roenick acquisition, but furthermore, losing Zadorov and Lindholm for nothing last summer, you don't want to continuously make trades for rentals and continuously just look at assets that go out the door for players who help you within the body of one season, not multiples. So he's got 1 year left.
10-team no trade.
10-team no trade.
I would think the Canucks are clear of that.
Mm-hmm. $4.4 million, so he's reasonably expensive for a pure defender right now. Cap's going up again next year, so 4.4 doesn't look quite as onerous. I don't know.
He's found it
because I just don't know what what's that guy going to cost you? Because we know that Connor Bedard has already made some noise about how much he hates the losing there in Chicago, and if you're moving Murphy out there for something that isn't of an immediate help.
They're 3-3 under the new coach. Connor Bedard's above a point per game under the new coach. Mm-hmm. Now Murphy's having himself his best season
offensively. Yep.
Offensively, like his career high is 19 points. He's at 12 already. And after 3 straight double-digit negative plus-minus seasons, he's on the plus side of the ledger this year. So safe to say he's probably doing something better at that end of the ice as well.
He'll be 32 in March. He's actually another Ohio guy, like Sherwood and Miller. In fact, that's the same agent as Miller.
The price of that one would be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be.
I don't know what it would be.
And truthfully, minutes watched of Connor Murphy. Like I'm judging a lot of this off the stat sheet. Mm-hmm. I haven't put the eye test to Connor Murphy.
Wow, before Bedard got there last year, was anybody watching Blackhawks hockey over the previous couple of years?
No.
I mean, we have friends in Chicago who are Blackhawks fans through and through. I'm not sure you could have paid them to go to the United Center.
Nor was I watching mid-teens Coyotes, which is where he got his start.
Was he there with Tocchet? Would he have been there?
Tocchett's years?
Yeah. Would he have been there? Overlap?
13 to 17.
That's when Murphy was there?
Yeah. Seems about right for Tocchet, doesn't
it? Right. Yeah. 13 to 17. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's Ivan Provorov in Columbus. We talked a little bit about him yesterday. Dollywall says there's some interest there. We also brought you that story. 13 to 17.
Just missed him.
Yeah. Brought you that story that LeBrun had yesterday that Provorov's kid brother is going to go to Ohio State University, that the family still loves Columbus, and that, whereas once people didn't think there was any chance of an extension with Provorov and the Blue Jackets, that is now more likely than prior to his brother committing. So I voted yes. You voted no.
We'll soon see.
Well, we'll see by tomorrow night whether anything's going to happen now. Otherwise, it's December 29th, Saturday. Is that correct, when the roster freeze lifts? And at that point, I think a lot of NHL eyes are going to be on the Canucks because of Rutherford's reputation for being such an early mover. Lease month at Surrey Mitsubishi. Leasing a car, better option, lower monthly payments, flexibility of driving a new vehicle every few years, convenience of staying under warranty, minimal maintenance costs. You avoid the depreciation hit. This month at Surrey Mitsubishi, you can lease an Outlander PHEV 2024 for $182 a week. If you want the gas option, Outlander Gas is yours for $105 a week. The Eclipse Cross, just $100 a week, and the RVR only $87 a week, plus skate away with a $1,000 winter tire credit and no charge to your maintenance package. And don't miss out on that $5,000 government rebate on the Outlander PHEV hybrid while it lasts. See dealer for details and term. All leases are OAC. Surrey Mitsubishi, 13820 104th Avenue in Surrey. We're online at surreymitsubishi.ca. I have a old college friend who is a Liberal Party member And I DM'd him yesterday. I went, oh, quite a day on Monday. And he went, I'm at the holiday caucus party now. And if he is resigning, he is certainly showing no signs of it. Talking about the PM. It's been a big week.
John in the chat, Blake and Matt, I have a thought for you.
Okay.
Taylor Hall and Connor Murphy for Höglander, Vinny Darnay, Klimovich, and a first.
And why would the Canucks want Taylor Hall? He was healthy scratched earlier this year. He's on a $6 million ticket. He has a
he's done after this year, though.
10-team no
So you're
trade
free
list.
from him at the end of this year.
Is he scoring this year? Should I know something about Taylor Hall? That
He's not scoring. He's 7-7 and 31.
I think there's a much better deployment of $6 million in caps.
That's the thing.
I guess they would hold
If there's retention,
but even then, like they retained to make him a $3 million player. What did he do last year? He only played the 10
yeah,
games
he only played
last
the
year.
10 games. Last full year was 16 games, 16 goals, pardon me.
That was in 61 games. He got to 20 with the Bruins in 21-22.
And 61 points is pretty good.
No. So what is a Murphy Hall for Höglander, Klimovich,
First.
and a first, and you get rid of Desharnais?
Yeah. There's some pluses and minuses there. I'd have to ruminate on that a little bit more, but
Yeah, my knee jerk is no. But that was John. Thank you for the suggestion, John. Let's get to our top. No, John.
It was John. Yeah,
John.
Yeah.
Let's get to our top story, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. The first ever visit to Utah, Salt Lake City, and the Utah soon-to-be Yeti Hockey Club.
So say you.
I think they're going Yeti.
Okay.
I called Kraken.
You did call Kraken, much to my disappointment. So I'll let you call Yeti.
Yeah.
I still hate Kraken for whatever it's worth.
Do you?
Yep.
I got to say, well, and maybe it's just because they haven't done more winning and don't have a lot of sizzle. But I thought they would have done more with Kraken than what I've seen. Now, in market, they may be doing things.
I think down there it feels a little more Kraken-y, but yeah.
They still released the Kraken before the game. And so,
I think so.
That build they could really do something with that build. But, of course, you need a decent hockey team.
Yeah.
The Utah Hockey Club is 14-11-5, 33 points. They are 3 behind the Calgary Flames for the final playoff spot in the West. But here's the thing. Like the Canucks, they have games in hand on just about everybody. They've only played 30 games. Canucks and Utah have played the second most games in the West. Only Anaheim with 29 has played fewer. Thatcher Demko to start after that sizzling performance, near shutout performance against the Colorado Avalanche on Monday. His best game of the 3 since his return to the lineup. Of course, Kevin Lankinen's been battling the flu. But you can be assured that Kevin Lankinen is going to start in Vegas tomorrow night as the Vancouver Canucks endure just their second back-to-back of the season, right, Blake?
Crazy. Second or third?
We've been talking about third.
Third, yeah.
Pittsburgh, Boston, Chicago, Nashville. We've been talking about how generous this schedule has been for the Canucks in the opening 3 months of the season. And yes, they've been playing every second day now for almost 2 weeks. And they got 4 left before the Christmas break. But Utah tonight, Vegas tomorrow, and then home Saturday to a suddenly much better Ottawa Senators team than what they encountered in the nation's capital when they just drilled Travis Green's club without Quinn Hughes, who got ejected from that game early. And then home Monday to Macklin Celebrini and the San Jose Sharks. And oh my word, is Macklin Celebrini a player? What were you telling me? He's got 3 more goals than
4 more goals than Connor Bedard does.
In how many fewer games?
9 or 10.
Because
He's played
Celebrini
22.
He's played 22.
Yeah.
Macklin Celebrini he's a half goal a game right now.
Yeah. No, he's 11-11 in 22. And I mean, I expected him to be a great player, but I thought he would be, and he still might be. This is just his start. But I didn't think he would certainly start with even goals and assists. I thought it would be a 1/3, 2/3 split probably for a player of his ilk, and that Connor Bedard was the goal scorer. But at least this season, it's kind of been the reverse for the two players. We'll see. I mean, he's being asked to be a lot more, so perhaps that's why the goals are up. Surrounded by more talent 3-4 years down the road, perhaps we see that he's a 30-goal scorer, 100-point guy rather than a 45-goal guy. I think that's probably the way it goes down. But the fact that he can score goals is at this clip is pretty impressive.
And he will play the entirety of this season at 18 years old.
Yeah.
He does not turn 19 until next June. He's not only eligible for this Canadian World Junior team, he's eligible for next year's World Junior team.
He'll be 20 years old and will be like a legit veteran of the league.
And he's a complete center. He's a 200-foot player.
Mm-hmm.
Macklin Celebrini, he is the truth. At some point, San Jose is going to be reckoned with in this division because of Macklin Celebrini. It's not going to be this year, not going to be next year. But that's the final home game Monday. And a reminder, folks, that game is Amazon Prime. We've been actually, if you don't subscribe to Amazon Prime, and somebody told me an outrageous number of Canadians have Amazon Prime.
Yeah, but not for television purposes, for shopping purposes.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's something in the order of 10 million plus Canadian subscribers on Amazon Prime,
yeah.
Which may actually, I don't know how many Canadian households still have cable now. But if you don't have Amazon Prime, that is going to be the only place to watch Monday's game.
Don't be shocked by that.
This is not a Sportsnet game.
Yeah.
We know full well it's going to happen. People are going to get to 7 p.m. on
why can't I watch the game?
Sorry, it's actually a 6 p.m. start. People are going to get to 6 p.m. on Monday and going, whoa, where's Shorty? Where's Murph?
Are you?
This has been a Monday national package in Canada for Amazon Prime. And so every other Canadian franchise has gone through this already with games on Monday nights that are unavailable on your cable package, unavailable in the places where you normally watch them.
We'll remind you again on Friday.
Yeah, indeed.
Let's talk again about tonight, though. And
Please do.
Thatcher Demko gets the third straight start. It may be by necessity in that Lankinen is at 88%, and if they wait the extra day, he's at 100. And
you're splitting goaltending duties anyway.
You know you're splitting it anyway. But this is game in, day off for 3 straight for Thatcher Demko. Any worry there for you this early in the comeback?
No. He's got to go through this at some point. I think this is a good spot to pick. And also, he was the second best player on the ice Monday after Kiefer Sherwood. Didn't think I'd be saying that. But Kiefer Sherwood was phenomenal with the hat trick, and Thatcher Demko was the backbone defensively. And it was a great defensive first period for the Canucks. We talked about that. Colorado started generating more as the game went along. 3 of the world-class players on the other side, and Rantanen, McKinnon, and Makar, and I thought he tracked the puck at his height. That was a game for me out of Thatcher Demko that, put it in the Louvre. It was symbolic of that Vezina Trophy candidacy last year when he was so good through the first couple thirds.
He'll get the extra day off on the other side to recover.
And that's helpful too.
And I almost wish that they had the 3 goalies with them, and you just gave Thatcher the entire day off tomorrow.
Yeah, well, maybe they will.
Well, yeah, you're right. They could recall.
They've played a lot of up and down. The up and down game has been a thing.
It's on the road, but it's not too far to get to Vegas from Abbey.
No.
In fact, you can put them on probably a charter plane.
Yeah. So, are you okay with it? Are you going to quibble?
Again, you're kind of forced into it. I get that they have to do this. Mm-hmm. I think you can be worried, and that would be normal too.
What are our friends at Yellow Dog up to?
Well, they want to remind you of the fabulous mix packs that they have. The box of tricks Yellow Dog Brewing has released. Choose between the classic High Five Hazy IPA, 2 brand new brews in the Wander Tropical IPA and the Liquid Neon Juicy Pale Ale, and then they've got the limited release Ultra Color Amber IPA that they've taken out of the Yellow Dog vault and brought back. And I was just inside the BC liquor store the other day, and all the mix packs are there, and it's pretty fun for holiday get-togethers to have more than one beer on display. So go check it out today.
Yes. I see all the people in the comments and in the replies on today's poll question about Rasmus Andersson in Calgary. And we have been talking about Rasmus Andersson in Calgary since day one of Penticton back at Young Stars. And here's the thing. If Rasmus Andersson does become available in Calgary, I am with all of you who are saying, hey, I'd rather give up more for Rasmus Andersson than what we're talking about
100%.
For a Bowen Byrum, for a Provorov, for a Murphy, through a Matheson. Run the list. Rasmus Andersson is a complete defenseman, a true right side on an awesome ticket. But Calgary is in playoff position right now. I suspect Calgary will be fighting for playoff position for some time.
He's got an extra year on his contract.
That too.
They don't need to do this.
He's got a modified no trade as well. Although only a 16 no trade list. If it does come to pass that the wheels fall off the Flames and they become sellers at the deadline, let's have at her. I mean, sun, moon, stars. What do you want to give Calgary to bring this player over?
Which is why maybe, Matt, you pull off one defenseman trade now that's sort of, and I'll just use Connor Murphy again as an example, sort of a safe upgrade, you know, a good guy, but not necessarily an elite guy. And then you see what shakes free a little closer to the deadline.
Yeah.
To make your bigger splash.
But I would say two things here. Number one, even if they are declared sellers at the deadline, I do wonder whether they're going to make Andersson available. And here's why, everybody.
Yeah.
And we've had this conversation as well. The second Craig Conroy trades Rasmus Andersson, he signals to his fan base, we're done here being competitive until the new building comes in a few years. So long as Andersson is there alongside Mackenzie Weegar, they have a excellent couple of top defensemen there with the young goaltender, Wolf, who has given them terrific work this year. They can at least posture. You may say it's pretend, but you at least posture that they have a fighting chance of competitiveness. Once they trade Andersson, that becomes an illusion. And that has everyday financial consequences for the Calgary Flames. They may get there, but right now they're not there. And there's part of me that would even be surprised if they get there this year.
It depends on who the acquiring team is, because
and it depends on the return as well.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And then if you got a team out there that's got a 22-year-old defenseman that's good right now, but there's hope that he'll blossom into something much better, maybe they want to press fast forward on that 22-year-old defenseman and turn him into. Sorry about that, folks.
Yeah, apologize about that. We had a bit of a software issue there. Anyways, with regards to Buffalo, they not only lose this hockey game, and Mike, I think we got a microphone. But they fall to last place in the Eastern Conference with the loss to Montreal, who had previously occupied last place. And incidentally, did you see Laine last night?
Oh, fabulous.
Vintage
Great story.
Patrick Laine. And Montreal loves its showmen, loves guys with flair, loves goal scorers, and especially guys who score unique goals. And so the crowd was just awesome. All those Habs fans. And the one goal where he picks that sliver of a corner. Like we said in the summer, for a team that has nothing to lose this year, Line A is so tantalizing because if he can get back, that's one of the rare guys the world over that can score goals like that. Well, and even after the knee injury in preseason, to be able to get back to scoring goals like that was just awesome to see.
I read somebody say he's top 25 in one-timers attempted this year. He's played 7 games.
Yeah. And like I've anyways, just love watching him shoot that, like him and Ovechkin shooting that puck from that spot. I guess you could put Stamkos on the list as well. Over the last 10 years, Ovechkin's case 20, and Stamkos' case 15, but watching those guys do that is so aesthetically
But two notable losses, that one and the Rangers being shut out.
Yeah. Well, I was going to get to that. First of all, Buffalo, by the way, they've missed the playoffs 13 years in a row. They have not won a playoff series in 18 years, or it will be 18 years this spring. The Rangers shut out to Nashville, and Nashville occupies 32nd place in the overall league standings right now. That is the second loss this week for the Rangers to teams that have occupied 32nd, because they lost to Chicago as well. And they blew a 2-goal lead at home to the Kraken and lost that one too.
It's astonishing, given the way this team looked in the playoffs last year. Not that I thought that they were going to win the Cup, but they went on a nice run. There was a lot of excitement. There was a lot of feel-good, I thought, in the Rangers in the playoffs last year. It ended shorter than they wanted to, obviously. But to me, it looked like a team that was close to being a contender. And for them to be where they are now, losing like they are losing now, and for management to be acting like they're, honestly, it is a tire fire.
Mm-hmm.
So the Sabres are being the Sabres.
Yes.
The Rangers, that is a different plot line.
Oh, yes, it is. Well, this was the team that won the President's Trophy last year. This was the team that a lot of people thought could be a Stanley Cup team this year. So if you're a Canucks fan looking for a top 4 defense, the longer this goes on in Buffalo, the longer this goes on with the Rangers, the better it is for you, because they would become more likely to make a trade and make somebody available that can help this hockey club.
Would they retain on Trocheck, do you think? Is there a chance they would retain on Trocheck?
So it'd be retaining on 4 years. So
yeah.
That's tough. Have they used any of their retention spots? No, they have not.
He's 31.
Yeah.
Like, who wants to acquire a guy with 4 more years?
Yeah. Although he's 5'6", which if the cap going up is...
Yeah, you're not getting
like,
50%
you're not talking about
retention.
an $8+ million player. The player there is Capo Caco, everybody. The one-time
he's
second
available,
overall
but do you
pick.
want him?
He's $2.4 million this year. He's an RFA with Arbrights. He was scratched earlier this season and sputtered off. Basically said, I don't think I've been that bad. I think it's easy to scratch the young guy, which was a shot across Peter Laviolette's bow. Capo's name has been in trade rumors for some time. He's 23 years old now. Canucks are supposed to be looking for a winger.
He's never been more than a half point per game. This is year 6th in the NHL for him.
Yep. Emily Kaplan of ESPN saying the Minnesota Wild poking around on him. So you look at the Bill Guerin playbook. Young player falling out of favor in Columbus, David Jiricek. Let's go get him. Young player falling out of favor in the Rays. Let's go get him. A little bit on Brock Boeser here. We talked about how on After Hours, Jim Rutherford said basically the big thing with Brock is going to be term, and that the trade deadline is, in fact, a soft deadline for them to get an extension done. Boeser, a unrestricted free agent to be this summer. Saravelli says he thinks the deal is going to come in just under Gensel, whether that's the Canucks or somebody else. Gensel signed a 7-year deal at $9 million her. Now, I don't know if under means less term. Certainly, I suspect it means less money. 7 years for me is a little long. I'm not sure I would want to be into a Boeser deal into his mid-30s.
No, for sure. And
But he's got a great bargaining position here, and somebody will on the open market.
I mean, that's asking still only for a $1.75 million raise effectively, which seems pretty reasonable for a guy who had 40 last year and is on pace for on a 30-goal pace over this year.
It may seem a little too reasonable, and they try and push the envelope further. Now, of course, there was, the reason Boeser is making what he is making is because of the poison pill deal that Jim Benning signed that this management group inherited, where they knew, they were going to have to get creative on the re-sign, and Boeser worked with them on that, and his agent Ben Hankinson out of Minnesota worked with them on that. That's going to be an interesting story to follow in the new year as well.
I think it ultimately might come down to a completely reasonable offer being tabled by the agent and the player, and the Vancouver Canucks just saying, yeah, but we just can't do that because of the years and all that sort of stuff. I think it just could be not the right fit for the next contract.
And the other thing is, if they do trade Lekramaki for one of these top four defensemen that we've talked about, or someone we haven't talked about, Boeser suddenly has more leverage there too, because your would-be replacement number one wing goal scorer would be gone.
Yep, you bet.
Boeser, of course, the longest tenured member of the Vancouver Canucks team. Thatcher Demko, the longest tenured member of the organization, drafted a year before Brock Boeser in 2014. I wanted to draw attention, and Mike's got the visual here. I wanted to draw attention to the back of the mask there. First of all, beautiful artwork. Secondly, the 6 retired numbers in Vancouver Canucks history, with poor Ring of Honor Roberto Luongo looking up at them. And well done, Thatcher, to include Roberto.
And there's an editorial in there.
Yeah, exactly. Put it this way, if this is an editorial cartoon, it is worthy of those great editorial cartoonists. Yes. But what does that signify? For me, that signifies loyalty to the Vancouver Canucks. That signifies a appreciation
of history,
appreciation
for sure.
of the only franchise he has ever known.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he's eligible for a contract extension on July 1st this summer. You do wonder.
Yeah.
Has Lankinen shown you there's another way?
Well, if Lankinen had term, you'd have
I don't mean
way bigger
Lankinen.
story.
I mean going
see.
cheaper in goal and being able to redeploy the money. Is that a way to go about re-signing Boeser, keeping some of the bands back together beyond next season?
Here's the funny thing about this roster and how they've gone about it the last couple of years. I think we've all praised the fact they haven't overcommitted to players.
Right.
The problem is, they've hit so well on so many of these players that they are then in a tough spot of, oh God, do we recommit to that player at a much bigger freight because they performed in that 1 year that we all had no risk? And I think now about Dakota Joshua, and there are extenuating circumstances. There's an asterisk beside Dakota Joshua's name. But Dakota Joshua got some decent money, if not big money, but decent money with term, and has four shots this season. So you got to be careful about falling in love with 1 year, is my point.
Yeah, and look, I will everybody's in his corner.
Mm-hmm.
And there are extenuating circumstances and asterisks, as you say. But I think you have to be, if Joshua isn't better soon, I think you have to consider a healthy scratch here.
For sure.
Because I'm
maybe
just not
maybe
sure,
for a couple games in a row for full rest.
I'm just not sure he's one of your 8 best wingers the way he's playing right now.
We went through it off the air, folks. I mean, they're all the call-ups have more shots on goal than Dakota Joshua. Archie Baines,
Well, Matt Sasson is playing better hockey right now than Dakota Joshua.
So when they get to the point where they've got other options, I mean, it's unbelievable to say. But again, there are reasons potentially for why that is. And for that reason, maybe rest is the best thing for Dakota Joshua.
It is trade season in the major junior ranks. Somehow, some way, the Gatineau Olympics acquired a second-round pick today for the cost of a third-round pick. I have no idea why that's a thing in the queue, but a Canucks prospect has been traded as well. Earlier this week, the big Swede Vilmer Ulriksson traded from the Guelph franchise, who were in last place. So he's moving on up to Brampton, which is a mid-table team.
I saw some junior trade where there was a dozen picks going the other way.
23 points in 26 games. No, but the Gatineau Olympic announced today they've acquired a second-round pick for a third-round pick. I'm just not sure how one pulls that off. Here it is. Transaction. The Olympics acquire a second-round pick in 2025 in return for a third-round pick in 2025. This is with Cape Breton. Cape Breton just giving away preferred draft picks.
Here it is. London Knights got Cam Allen from Guelph for Noah Jenkins. So there's a human-for-human element.
Cam Allen is a first-round pick of the Blackhawks, if I'm not mistaken.
So Guelph gets Noah Jenkins and 7 draft picks. 7 picks.
Oh, sorry. No, I think I have the right Cam Allen. How does he spell it?
Traditional spelling.
A-A-L-L-E-N?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, he's an OHL player?
Yep. Was Guelph, now London.
Okay, sorry. He isn't the first-round pick of Chicago. He's a Washington draft pick. Major junior trades. It's just madness. Okay.
Nobody named Tyler traded. Or did I just mention a Tyler? Who came back to know it was Noah? Yeah. Still pretty CHL-y.
Any Connors?
No. Not that I see.
What was the new name that we came about?
Well, for years it was, of course, anything Aiden.
Aiden, right.
Jaden, Braden, Aiden.
Aiden, Braden, all of them. Menu time by Greta, a fantastic spot to catch all the games, home and away, steps from the stadium, minutes from the arena. We'll have some Canucks Army viewing parties there. They have the awesome arcade. If you've got some time here over the holidays and are just looking for a fun night out, hit up Greta. I promise you there will be a game or games plural that appeal to you. And you'll have an absolute blast. We've seen it many times at Greta. Weekly drink specials, the place to be. 50 West Cordova, Greta Bar, let the games begin. Frank Corrado's going to join us. Laurence Gilman is going to join us. We asked them both what they would do with this Pettersson Miller business.
You get the player side, you get the locker room side, you get the management side. Two very different angles,
and
right?
We also talked to Laurence about Bo and Byrum.
Yeah.
And what's going on there. Bet365, Bet of the Day time. Segment proudly brought to you by Bet365. Now, I picked a future
as did
yesterday.
I. So those are both pending.
Okay, so go ahead. Fire away.
And because we've got games on Saturday in the National Football League, we've got that as an option for us as well.
Big day of football Saturday. 3 college football playoff games, 2 NFL games.
All that being said, with the Canucks into Utah, I'll go down for the Canucks and a player prop there. Quinn Hughes has just been magnificent. We know that he leads in shots on goal on a nightly basis, and all he needs to do is get to 3 tonight to pay off at minus 140. So you get it's a safe bet. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Minus 140, so 140 to win 100 on 3 shots?
3.
He just gets the 3?
Yeah.
Okay. JT Miller has 3 points in his 3 games since returning from that leave of absence. He was the best Canuck versus Boston. Hasn't scored on a goalie since October 26th. Only 2 empty netters in that span. He is well overdue. And he pays plus 220 as an anytime goal scorer tonight in Utah. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. At Bet365, use code NATION when opening that account. Frank Corrado coming up next.
I'll be honest, I don't get to many games anymore, whether it be at the arena or the stadium. Ticket availability cost, it's a bit of an issue these days. So I prefer to go where there's atmosphere and I know I can get in. Greta Bar YVR. Soak up all the atmosphere with your fellow fans and enjoy a great night with a great street food menu. I prefer the poutine. Weekly drink specials as well at Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova. And we'll be having our viewing parties there all season long as well. Your pregame, your postgame, it's at Greta Bar YVR, 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin.
Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center. This next segment brought to you by Ben Moss Jewelers. Proudly Canadian-owned, operated with a history dating back more than 100 years. 5 locations in British Columbia. Coquitlam Center, Willowbrook and Langley, Chilliwack, Victoria, Abbotsford. They got a large selection of Canadian mined diamonds, lab-grown diamonds, diamonds with payment plans to suit your needs, and they're committed to customer satisfaction. So check them out at benmoss.com. Ben Moss, shine bright. Joined by former Vancouver Canuck and TSN hockey analyst, Mr. Frank Corrado. Happy Christmas to you, Frank. How you doing?
I'm good. Merry Christmas. Nice to talk to you guys. What's happening?
Well, just humming along. No real storylines to follow here with the Vancouver Canucks.
We have a Rudolph situation here, Frank. All the other reindeers. And then there's one in the Canucks.
Although I don't know who's playing the role of Rudolph necessarily.
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of a mixed metaphor. That's why.
Rudolph.
Yeah.
Is Rudolph wearing 40 or is he wearing 9?
It's
I'm not sure.
The group that's bullying Rudolph. It's
the one that guides the sleigh, right? So
right.
Again, who is that guy?
Yeah, who is Rudolph? That's a good poll question.
Who
for
guides
next
the
week.
sleigh? 43 guides the sleigh.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Who's Santa? I mean, you could take your pick on who's Santa. I don't think Santa would be a player. I think that would be someone in a managerial position.
Yeah, I think Jim Rutherford's Santa.
Yeah. But 43 is Rudolph. Everyone else is just kind of playing for Prancer and Nix. What are the other ones?
Donner and Blitzen just won't stop bitching, you know? They're like that sometimes.
Yeah. So let's get after it. Were you ever in a hot room where the leadership group ran a hot, loud, emotional room?
No, I was thinking about this. You and I were texting about, have I experienced this? I've never experienced something where two guys that are so, such major influences on the team butt heads like this. And guys will have disagreements on things. Guys will have arguments, but it always just kind of sorts itself out. And it's like, hey, just, boys will be boys, or, we're all playing on the same team, and everything just kind of seems to smooth itself over. There's fights in practice. I've been a part of teams that had fights in practice. I've been a part of teams that guys had FU matches on the bench, but it never seemed like it really festered for a long period of time. And the thing about that is, who gets affected more in those situations? I think the guy that gets affected more in those situations is the guy that's not the bull in a china shop, because the bull in a china shop is always, kind of being loud, and in your face, and you just kind of want to do your thing and you don't want to deal with it. And so that's the guy that I think gets affected by it most. But I've never played on a team where it felt like there was a lot of tension between two predominant players like that, outside of the odd disagreement here and there, or the odd practice fight, which always just kind of gets resolved and everyone moves on.
As it says in any corporation, it starts at the top, though, right? At the top sets the tone, and in this case, I would say the top is the coach, not management. Just in terms of what that coach tone is like. And Rick Tocchet is a tough nut to crack in that regard. I don't know if I want to call him old school or new school. He's sort of somewhere in between. But some coaches are old school and they like the fire and brimstone fiery guy, and some guys are a little more progressive and cater to the modern athlete. And again, I'm not picking on Elias Pettersson or the NHL. I think every sport is dealing with the fact that the modern athlete is different now than they were 20 years ago, where yelling at the athlete and all that sort of stuff was considered par for the course. It's a different atmosphere everywhere in sports these days, isn't it?
It is. And you know what? I learned something too late, I think, that coaches really appreciate a guy who walks around like he's an alpha male. Coaches love that because coaches aren't in the room all the time, right? They go in for the meetings. They might pop in here and there, but generally, like, they're just not around for the day-to-day. Like, they're not at the back of the plane. They're not at the dinners. So they only get to see, the limited kind of viewings outside of whatever is happening on the ice. But as time went on, and this is even, in my post-playing career, talking to people, coaches will admit in a candid conversation, they love a guy who walks a little louder, who has his chest puffed out and is willing to be that alpha male, because that tells them that when push comes to shove and we're on the ice, I know this guy's not going to shy away from anything. And so there would be a reluctancy from a coach to say, hey, I need to rein that in a little bit, because it might not be as harmonious in the room because you don't know, you're not in the room. So you don't know, outside of what maybe the trainers tell you who are around or what players, may tell you or may not tell you. It's hard for them to know. But like coaches who live and die by how many points the teams get and how much their team is going to, kind of scrape by and beg, borrow, and cheat at times, they want to know that there's alpha males, and they're not going to do much to suppress that kind of attitude. And so, where does that leave Rick Tocchet with JT Miller? Because that's a guy who kind of walks around, you would think, like he's an alpha male. Like that is going to be loud and a little in your face. And like I don't think coaches are ever going to be the ones to say, like, don't do that, because it may affect what they're doing on the ice.
How much do you think management is looking at how
coaches are alphas themselves? It must be said.
Yeah,
so when
Rick,
they see these alphas in charge, they see a similarity.
How much do you think management is looking at how Rick Tocchet deals with this? He's in his final normal year of his contract. He's got a team option after this. How much do you think they're looking at this and thinking, how is he going to handle all of it?
I don't think it's as much as we may think. I have a hard time with that because ultimately, for a coach, yes, there's a certain conduct that the players need to have. It's not really on the coach. Like the coach is not a babysitter. He's not there to, to kind of conduct whatever kind of behavioral, coordinating, whatever you want to talk. Like he's not there for that. He's not there to look after how guys are behaving. If it gets to a point where he has to step in, like that's almost like an indictment on the players that you guys couldn't figure it out to the point that the coach had to come in and act like a babysitter. And I'm sure if that situation ever arose, the coach would do it, but it's a bad look on everyone involved. And if that goes up the ladder, it's just like everyone's going to the principal's office now. And you know what happens when everyone goes to the principal's office? Everyone gets in trouble. It's just like he's responsible for the team winning hockey games, and he's going to try and do whatever he can to help the team win games. When it comes to the behaviors of the players, you would hope that those guys and the leadership group can kind of sort that stuff out. And if he had to step in, I'm sure he would, but that's not his job.
It is, of course, more than just Elias Pettersson, though. JT is loud and emotional with just about everybody. It's pronounced with Pettersson because they both acknowledge, look, we don't see eye to eye, and everybody can see they're just vastly different personalities. Would you be at all concerned about a room that's run hot by an emotional guy like JT? Do you think that adversely affects their ability to win a Stanley Cup or go deep in the playoffs?
It shouldn't, because when push comes to shove and everyone can see an attainable goal, those kinds of things should be on the back burner, and we're just thinking about winning games, and it's for the greater good of the team. Like that, I truly do believe that no matter what, guys will find a way to kind of put that stuff aside, park it, and be together as a group as much as you can, as much that makes you comfortable. Because, like, let's be honest, okay? You guys have known a lot of hockey players over the years. You've covered a lot. there have been teams that have won Stanley Cups or have gone long playoff runs where guys probably hated each other's guts. This is not the first time this has happened. It's not the last time it's going to happen. And there's still been teams that have had success, but you look back at it and you say, man, those guys hated each other. There were bands. Like, there are bands that made some of the greatest albums and greatest music of all time, and they don't even talk anymore because they hate each other so much. But in those moments, they parked it, and they made some of the best music you'll ever hear in your life. Like, this is it's not exclusive to hockey, and it's not going to be the first time. It's not going to be the last time. So I think if the history lesson tells us anything, is that when greatness is achievable and attainable, guys can and will find a way to work through it regardless of what kind of tensions will be around. Where I think it goes south, Matt, is when the play suffers and everyone's struggling, and then it turns into, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that, and the blame game gets thrown around. That's where I would say, okay, it's hard to get it back there. But if the team is on the right track, then I think everyone can kind of push forward and park some of the stuff, whatever their differences are.
I think of the Amazon series that got released, guys, on the Edmonton Oilers, and that now famous / infamous clip of Connor McDavid screaming at his team in the locker room in the playoffs. Now, granted, that's at a higher moment in the playoffs.
I was just going to say, you fall behind in a Stanley Cup final series. That's the spot.
But still, the fact that the stoic, stone-faced McDavid is capable of that, even at any point, I don't think people necessarily would have predicted.
Right? Like, that's not McDavid doesn't get along with so-and-so in difference of opinion. No. That's just that's sheer, raw emotion. That's different for me. But, it's funny you bring up that series. Remember Matthew Tkachuk talking about the Panthers? He made some comments. He's like, we all say the same things. We all speak the same language. We're all, it's nice to have that where everyone, you kind of have the same lingo, the same slang. Everyone's got a little bit of personality. There's some wit in the dressing room. Not everyone's going to have that, though. But that's part of what makes the Panthers so good, because, when they're playing games in December and you're like, the Panthers don't really have it right now, you don't get too worried, because in April, all those guys are speaking the same language. They're all on the same page. And when the time is right, you'll see the emotional kind of energy level get there for them, because they're all in tune to it and they're all speaking the same language together.
You're right. Yeah. You don't need that in the room. But it's nice if you do have it, right? Like, if you can get everybody on the same page, it's a little bit nicer.
Okay. Let's say everything that we've just talked about over the last 12 minutes is for naught. If it has to come down to one or the other, who should stay? Who should go?
It's Pettersson should stay. I mean, one's 32, one's in his mid to late 20s. Right, like what's Pettersson, 26? Yeah. Yep. And if you kind of listen a little bit, like maybe Miller has something injury wise that there's just, I'm not going to speculate on it. I'm not reporting that. I listen to podcasts. You know what I mean? And you listen to what people say, and it's like, I know Pettersson has had injuries over the years too, but it's the younger guy who, when Miller has been absent at times, has played really, really well. For me, Pettersson has more upside, points-wise, offensive production-wise. Like, we're talking about a 100-point player in the past. So I think the age has a lot to do with it. I think the wear and tear has a lot to do with it. And that should be right there. Like, you'd be hedging your bets saying, I'm going to go with a little longevity here. And I think I've gotten the most, or as much as I could get out of Miller, and that's fine. But if push came to shove, and this is purely a hypothetical, if push came to shove, I think you're keeping 40. That shouldn't be a hot take? Is that?
No, it's not that hot a take. No. Especially with the no move clause, though. That's the only thing that sort of puts up the. No. But safe to say that if you are, like, you're not forcing yourself into that decision anytime in this current season. Would that be safe to say that would be an off-season decision if you have to make it?
If you had, that would be first of all, that would be such a travesty if you had to make that decision. Like, I think that would be just the two guys really have let it slip away so badly that the team now has to suffer because of it. So that would be a travesty, because not many teams, like, you try and win Stanley Cups, or you try and be a good team for a long time, not many teams are going to be able to throw that at you down the middle of the ice. And so to not have it, whether it's one guy or the other, that is like, it just shouldn't happen.
These shitstorms happen. Look at the New York Rangers, right? Like, who'd have thought these soap operas could happen in these New
York Rangers are so loud. They're so loud about everything they do, to the point that I feel like the players look at it and say, like, why do you have to include us in your kind of tomfoolery that you're doing? Like, you conduct your business, be cutthroat, no problem. But just leave us and our family, because it affects your families too when it's public like that. Like, leave us out of it. I don't want to have to go to my wife or girlfriend every day and answer questions about, are we getting traded today, or what's happening with this guy? I heard this. Like, just do it quieter.
Hey, ownership.
Yeah.
And the New York Rangers have an eccentric and emotionally erratic owner. And
a lot of them
he sets the tone, and that vibes through the organization, and to the point where Drury's sending a memo to 31 other teams saying everybody's available, and that getting leaked, and then so on and so on. Just getting back to this Pettersson-Miller thing for a second. I understand wholeheartedly what you're saying, Frank Corrado, that it would be a travesty from the standpoint of a fan or people looking in on the Vancouver Canucks, that they would have to break up this 1-2 punch down the middle. Of course, management and the coaching staff would know better than us. They would have a better handle on how sustainable it is right now. And frankly, if they felt like a Stanley Cup opportunity this spring was going to be compromised by this, would they not want to act sooner rather than later? Like, I give it, I don't for a second think either of them are going to be traded by the deadline, but I think there's a non-zero chance there. Also, because take a look at your window, gentlemen. It is the next 2 years with Thatcher Demko and Quinn Hughes on the great deals. Mm-hmm. So you probably have to make this decision sooner rather than later, especially with Elias having trade protection coming into his contract in July. So, yeah, I do think you run through the season and see where this is at. And if you come to the conclusion that we're not going to be all that we hope to be because of the conflict between these two players, you make the move in the summer before Elias's trade protection kicks in. And that doesn't mean you move Elias. It just means you do it while you still have the leverage of Elias.
I get it, man. It just I can't believe it would get to that point. Like, that would be, one, or it has to be two guys. It has to be two egos that are putting those egos ahead of the team. Like, that's, you can't just blame one guy in this situation. Although, like, generally there would be one guy who maybe antagonized the other guy, but we're just not going to know that kind of stuff because we're not in the room, and you're going to go all the way back, and you're just not going to find that stuff out. But for it to get to that point, it would have to be so drastic, and then you'd have to unpeel that for years to really get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. Refresh my memory. I know Thatcher was drafted by the Canucks when you were still playing with them. Did you ever encounter him?
No,
because he was still at Boston College, right?
Yeah, and I wouldn't have been at that point. I wouldn't have been at development camps anymore.
Right.
I think I did 3 laps around the track for development camps and prospect tournaments.
We covered that in September. You were captain prospects camp.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. He told us it would take a couple of games, and then sure enough, game number 3 Monday. I mean, he was incredible against the Colorado Avalanche. What do you think of this?
Well,
Demko, Lankinen combo going forward here, Frankie.
It's great, but I just think with Demko, like, you wanted to see him be in the net and not have to worry about anything, right? Like, just be instinctual. If you have to make a desperation save, you're not worried about where your leg is going or where your foot is going or how you're pushing. You're just doing it, and that's what we saw, and that's great. And it's a testament to how good of a goaltender he is, how talented he is, that it doesn't take him a whole preseason and, a quarter of the season to get up and running. Like it feels like he's there. It feels like he is up and running. But that's the great thing is that and he even admitted he wants to put his body through it, wants to put his knee through it. Well, you can easily say that he's done that. And now you wait and see how he recovers game to game. But that's what you wanted to see. Just show us the instinctual movement where you're not thinking, and that's what he did. And it's huge for the Canucks. If you want to talk about trying to make a run, Kevin Lankinen's a great story. He's been great during the regular season, and who knows what would have happened if he played in the playoffs. But having Thatcher Demko back gives you a realistic shot against any team you're going up against.
And I think Lankinen's even better as a backup. He needs to play a fair amount, but he is amazing when he's not overworked. And now the Canucks have got the opportunity to get the best out of both of them. So.
Yeah, and in 2025, we'll discuss whether the Vancouver Canucks can win a Stanley Cup with 2-1 results all the way through the Stanley Cup.
Yes, and no 2-on-1s in a game.
No 2-on-1s, either for or against. Awesome stuff, Frank. Thank you for this. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
So, Harrison Price from the Historic Wall Center. We are joined now by former Canucks Assistant General Manager Laurence Gilman, a former NHL executive with the Leafs, Coyotes, and Jets. And that Jets-Coyotes part, we're going to get to it later because Canucks are into Utah for the first time, Blake.
Same team, technically.
How you doing?
I'm good. I was once the GM of the Utah Grizzlies, the American Hockey League.
Oh, really?
Kidding.
During my Phoenix Coyotes days, yes, they were our American League affiliate. We were one of the worst teams in the American Hockey League at the time.
And they played where? What was the arena they played out of?
I can't recall the name of the arena. It was an arena built for the Olympic Games in 2002. It was on the outskirts.
Yeah, on the outskirts.
It was a great rink. Great rink.
Yeah.
We didn't have such a great organization at the time.
No. Did you get the sense then that Salt Lake could one day be an NHL market?
No, I did not. And I think that Salt Lake has evolved. We're talking over 20 years ago now. I think Salt Lake has evolved immensely, and those that I know that have been there recently have said it's a different town. It's a different.
I was there twice in the summer, Lawrence, for MLS, and I quite liked it. I thought it was great. So it doesn't surprise me that they're
honestly visually, and I realize it's a lake, not an ocean. It's the city that has most reminded me of Vancouver in terms of buffered by mountains, snow-capped mountains, a big body of water nearby. So for those who don't know, Lawrence started with the original Winnipeg Jets, and you upped and moved down to the desert with the Coyotes when I got to imagine there was a lot of optimism back then, Lawrence, about being in this new market. I just want to get your take on everything that's transpired here with this franchise now landing in the Utah capital.
Well, people would go after Gary Bettman for the way he, vigorously defended the Phoenix market and didn't understand why. I can tell you that Phoenix is a great hockey market. When we first got there in '96, the Coyotes had 10,000 season ticket holders. In every single market, there are three components that make up a good franchise. One is obviously the market, two is the building, and three is ownership. And, obviously Phoenix is a great market, but they began their career there playing as a tenant in a building run by Jerry Colangelo and the Phoenix Suns in America West Arena, where you had 4,300 obstructed seats and virtually no revenue to generate from it. They hatched a plan to build a new arena, which was supposed to be in an old dilapidated mall at the base of Scottsdale near the intersection with Tempe called Los Arcos. And two votes occurred to approve putting the arena there. But in the second vote, the Scottsdale City Council killed it, which ultimately led to the Coyotes moving out to Glendale, Arizona, which was incredibly far from where the fan base was. And that occurred when the team was beginning in its cycle to cycle down. And it's a tragic event because I really believe had they built that building in South Scottsdale, it would be a different story. But that being said, I don't think I'm telling tales out of school, but if you look at the history of the ownership of the Phoenix Coyotes, it was their biggest problem. You either had you had a cast of characters that were either underfinanced, didn't get along, or just were plain inept. And that's a recipe for a disaster. And no matter how good a market can be or how good the market is, it can't overcome those elements. If you have a bad building and you don't have solid ownership, then your franchise is destined to fail, which is too bad.
Yeah. What do you make of this Utah owner, and what do you make of the team now in Salt Lake? You think it's going to be a good go there?
Well, it seems like they're having the same honeymoon in Utah that the Winnipeg Jets had when they went back after the Atlanta Thrashers were sold. By all accounts, Ryan Smith and his wife seem to be tremendous owners. The words, the intel I get from people who represent players that are there, they absolutely love it. They're being treated incredibly well. It's a first-class operation. They brought in Chris Armstrong, respected golf executive agent, and supposedly they are clearly doing things the right way. And from what I can tell to this point in time, they've been a model franchise. Unfortunately, from the hockey side, they've had some devastating injuries, particularly on their blue line. That's impacted their fortunes. But I think this is a pretty good success story for the National Hockey League.
The NBA is
a franchise to watch, too, when you look at the young collection of talent they have right now playing in the NHL and those prospects who are on the come, not to mention still have some draft picks to use over the next couple of years.
The NBA's got a hole that's obvious in Seattle. It's an obvious market they should be in. Is there any obvious market that the NHL should be in, or are they pretty well covered here? I mean, there are bigger cities that they're not in, like Houston and stuff like that, but is there any hockey-ish market that to you is they should probably be there?
Kansas City probably comes to mind as a good hockey market. It's got a rich history of minor league hockey. I think Portland would be another city that would fit in the NHL model. But you hit the nail on the head. I mean, Houston is the third largest city in the United States. You have an aging building, but interested ownership. I think that's the market that probably would fit best on the National Hockey League, but I am by no means an expert on that aspect of expansion.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just money, right?
The owner of the Houston Rockets, Tillman Fertitta, who made his money in casinos and also one of the biggest restaurant groups in the world, I believe has accepted an ambassador position in the new administration.
Oh, really? I missed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you're going to have the Jets owner, Woody Johnson. You're going to have Fertitta, the Rockets owner.
And Herschel
ambassador.
Walker.
Is Herschel an ambassador
Yeah.
as well? Okay. All right. Lawrence, moving on and back home here to the Vancouver Canucks. Much has happened in the last couple of weeks. We've learned or gotten further detail that, look, JT Miller runs a hot room. He's emotional. He gets on some teammates, and Elias Pettersson doesn't always appreciate that. How can the Vancouver Canucks go about fixing that, getting these guys to get along, get on the same page, and coexist harmoniously together?
Well, I have always said, and I've said it to you gentlemen in various forums, but the inmates don't run the asylum. And what I would do if I were in charge, which I am not, is I would bring both principal parties, both players, into my office with the coach, and I would have them air it all out. Hear from one guy, hear from the other. I mean, one guy's your number one center, the other guy's your number two center. One guy's 26, the other guy's 32. Let's have it out, guys. What are your issues? I would hear them out, hear one, hear the other, hear them both squawk at each other, and when they're done, I would say, are you finished? Good. Now go do your blanking job. I'm not trading, or this organization isn't trading either one of you. And your job is to do your job. And the coach's job is to coach you guys. So to me, the notion of if they can't get along, one of them gets traded, that's a terrible, terrible strategy. because the only thing that comes out of that is losing. And if you constantly, I learned in this business, if you trade players because you're mad at them, you'll trade yourself right down to the bottom of the league. And, another thing that I've said here, everybody's got problems. Always. Everybody's got problems. Two ways to deal with them. Either get rid of them or solve them. It's always better to solve your problem. That's how I would handle the situation.
You had a mix of personalities in your room. It was the Sedins and Kessler, PX, those were all different people. Did it ever get to the point where you guys had to say something, or did they just manage themselves?
Well, 99% of the time they managed themselves, but there were times when Elaine rubbed them the wrong way, and we had some issues, and we brought in the leadership group, which was as many as half a dozen of them, to talk about the state of affairs. And the important thing that we always wanted them to know was that we had their back and that we were supporting them. And as far as getting involved in the squabbles that occurred in the room, that was beneath Mike Gillis and beneath me, quite honestly. Having said that, it never rose to the point where we really had to intercede on any issue. But every team has issues from time to time, and it's better to let them solve their issues than you have to go in and ultimately, arbitrate over it, be the ultimate arbiter. But if it's as bad as, people are saying, I would bring both players in, have a come to Jesus talk with both of them, tell them neither of them are getting traded, go do your job. See you later, bye.
Let me push back for a second, Gilman, on trading one of them leads to losing. Do you not believe that you could go out and execute a good trade for the Vancouver Canucks, dangling one of these most desirable athletes? Why would that not be a possibility?
Well, JT Miller has a no-move clause, correct?
Correct.
So that creates a whole host of issues. So once a player has a no-movement clause, your leverage as a general manager trading that player is significantly weakened. And your ability to get back fair market value for that player is significantly weakened. I watched Cam Robinson's interview with you guys yesterday, and I thought he was absolutely correct. Logic would dictate if you're going to move one of them, you move the 32-year-old who has had a career year the last couple of years, not the 26-year-old who, mercurial star who, tough nut that you're trying to crack. But should you go and try and make that trade, it's like, use Patrick Waugh as an example. Patrick Waugh got fed up with Montreal. There was a blowout there, and there's no way to win a trade like that. Like, very, very, very rarely are you going to win a trade like that. You're giving away a number one center iceman, if you're making it, a 90 to 100 point player whose ceiling has not yet been formed. And that I have a very difficult time believing that you're going to take back more value than you're going to give up. And you'll be chasing to get a player like that for the next 10 years. That's what teams do. Like, you can't find players like this. You got to fix the problem. Like, whatever it is with Pettersson, between Pettersson and JT Miller, between Pettersson and his players, you got to fix the problem.
Okay. Let me push back again, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Well, because I know one of your mentors is Cliff Fletcher, the former Leafs and Flames GM. And I know one of the mantras of Cliff and a lot of managers is, you trade the best player in the deal, you lose the deal.
I believe the expression is he who gets the best player wins the trade.
Okay, there you go. The Ottawa Senators trade Erik Karlsson for a first-round pick that turns into Tim Stützle, Josh Norris, Chris Tierney, and Dylan DeMello. That's center iceman number 1, 2, 3, and a second pair right shot defenseman. The Colorado Avalanche trade Matt Duchene and wind up with Samuel Girard and Bowen Byrum, two top four defensemen, and wind up winning a cup. In a cap world, can you not trade a star player for volume and come out ahead?
Well, you can. In those instances, you're looking at two franchises that desperately wanted out of these players for different reasons. And getting rid of them was a win because they created cap space in and of themselves. In and of itself. Look, I'm not saying you can't win a trade. Trading a star player, you can, but it is not an easy thing to do, and the odds of the percentage are against you rather than for you.
Yeah,
And
your
there's
batting percentage goes down.
there's a lot of good fortune that comes in, with like, you can get back 3 first-round draft picks, but that's income. That's not income. Like, go ask the Boston Bruins about the 3 picks they had, in a row, one of which is now playing for the Vancouver Canucks in Jake DeBrusk. Like, just because you have high picks doesn't mean they're going to turn up.
No, fair enough.
If people have forgotten,
income, not income. That's a good one, Lawrence.
If people have forgotten, Laurence Gilman is a thesaurus of hockey isms. He can bring out 5 for every hockey
I have never
scenario.
heard IFCOM, though. That is really good.
Let's get into the poll question, Mr. Hockey Executive, because these are, again, sort of just hockey scruples, if you will, being tested here for the Vancouver Canucks. They've got a couple of blue chippers. They've got a lot of ifs, again, to bring up that word, prospects. This goes right, this goes right. This guy's an NHL player. Guys like Kudratsev and Elias Pettersson and others that are tracking nicely, but not blue chips. The blue chippers are Jonathan Lekramaki down on the farm right now and Tom Wielander playing college hockey. One's a right shot defenseman. One is a trigger scorer. Nice players. Wielander's not going to win a Norris. I don't think Lekramaki will ever win a Rocket Richard, but they're that next tier down. Are you willing to part with either of those guys to get a certified National Hockey League top 4 defenseman? Again, it's still not going to be a Norris Trophy winner. A guy like a Byrum is a nice defenseman, but he's not going to win a Norris. Are you willing to pay the price on these prospects for a guy like Byrum, who's probably what he is right now? I'm sure he would beg to differ with that, but what say you?
I'd say I'd have to think about it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not dismissing it offhand. I have been consistent in my analysis of the Vancouver Canucks. I personally think their forward group has a number of variety in it. I like the jam that they have with some of their forwards. They've got interchangeable pieces. Their defense isn't good enough. And, after Quinn Hughes and Philip Hronek, the drop-off is significant. And I think what has befallen them lately is with Philip Hronek going down, you've had to move Tyler Myers up into the top pairing, and you've placed extra pressure on Carson Soucy and Desharnais and the rest of it. And in my estimation, the Vancouver Canucks are not 1, but 2 defensemen away from becoming a legitimate, team or having a legitimate defense core. If you're going to get 2 top 4 defensemen, which is hard enough getting 1, you're going to be giving up a lot of your draft capital and your prospects. And I'm not saying this might not be the year, but it might not be the year to do that, because it's going to be it's not just one move to fix this problem. It's multiple moves, and it's going to take a lot of capital to accomplish that.
Reportedly, Byrum wants to be a bigger piece of any team's pie, if you will. He's stuck behind Power and Dahlin just in terms of being the guy on D. I mean, is he in the same, like, would you be wary as an executive if you hear scuttlebutt like that, if the agent even communicates that? They got Hronek and Hughes here. He's kind of in a similar situation. Or would you say, we'll cross that bridge. We'll talk to him about his role and we'll deal with that when he arrives?
I don't necessarily buy that that's what Bowen Byrum believes in his heart of hearts. I believe it might be a convenient thing to say because he's playing on an absolutely dismal hockey team that has no chance of being successful this year, let alone making the playoffs, and you're a player who's coming off winning a Stanley Cup. I don't have a problem in any event. I don't have a problem if a guy says, I want to be the man somewhere. But before making that deal, there would be a heart-to-heart with the player to say, let's understand something. We do have Quinn Hughes. We do have Philip Hronek. We're getting you to come in and play alongside them and be a part of them. But if you're telling us that you have to play ahead of, either one or both of them, then you're probably not going to be wearing a blue, green, and white uniform.
Right.
Yeah. Well, insightful as always, Lawrence. We have no show. Next Wednesday is Christmas and then New Year. So we got no shows here coming up on Wednesday for a couple of weeks. Have yourself a happy Hanukkah, happy New Year, and I look forward to talking to you in 2025.
Thanks, guys. All the best to you and your families for a healthy and happy holiday season and a very, very merry New Year.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center turned game night into a game weekend. Book your stay at the Wall. Enjoy an exclusive Harrison Price rate. Call 604-331-1000. Ask for it. Mention us by name. Some blackout dates apply based on availability. Have you noticed that I sometimes lapse into our old friend Martin Rennie?
Oh?
Weekend?
A weekend? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Where's Martin Rennie now?
Yeah. Text us 778-402-9680. Email live at harrisonprice.com. It all goes to the Great Clips inbox. We'll have a To the People We Go holiday edition on Friday. Great Clips.
It's going to be great.
Sure is.
Assistant coach of the Notre Dame women's team, Martin Rennie.
Is he really?
Yeah.
The University of Notre Dame.
Sounds like it, yeah.
In South Bend. Wow.
Yeah.
I'll be watching them Friday night. Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred, and for me this was long overdue, and I was pleased to hear the commissioner say this. He has acknowledged that baseball needs to improve its marketing of the game through the starting pitcher. We have discussed this at length, Blake.
Openers.
Not to mention, the trauma of, the Blue Jays and Tampa Bay taking starting pitchers out who were on a heater in a playoff game, and the next thing you know, it all falls apart. But the opener, the pitch count, you lose your protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
So much of the baseball narrative and storytelling, and baseball has told its story as well or better than any other sport out there for an awfully long time, is via the starting pitcher. Go back in the day, Koufax, Drysdale in the perfect game in the World Series, Bob Gibson.
Hershiser.
Yeah, through Hershiser in 88, Madison Bumgarner for the Giants more recently. But that elite pitcher, Jack Morris, going 10 innings, Blake. He pitched 10 innings in Game 7.
Never mind the person with Kurt Schilling in the bloody sock.
Bloody sock.
Mm-hmm.
And you lose that when a guy goes 3 2/3 and hits 75 pitches and is going through the order for a third. So he was asked about minimum innings rule, and he said it was just too blunt an instrument to fix this problem. And they've also stood down on golden at bat, thank God. But people are wondering about, now that you have the DH in both leagues, if the pitcher doesn't go 6 innings, you lose your DH. The starting pitcher.
I think 6 is a little bit punitive. But 5? Yeah, because 6 innings is a good start.
Well, that 6 innings, of course, is tagged to the quality start, right? If you go 6 innings or giving up 3 runs or less, that's deemed
no. But if your guy doesn't have it, God, you got to stick on.
And then your pitcher is hitting or your pinch hitting, which really kind of deepens your hole if you have a pitcher who's struggling.
Yeah.
But if it's just by choice, that would probably bring about the end of the opener.
Sticky with regards to injury. So you'd have to, a guy can always say he's got a tweak in his elbow. I got to come out, and you're not going to take away him for that.
Fair.
So that becomes messy.
Right.
Who's to say?
I'm just glad they're thinking about this and strategizing about it, because for me, baseball is less interesting when I know I am just going to get a cavalcade of relievers from the 3rd inning on.
Yeah.
I hate bullpen games to begin with. I particularly hate them in the postseason, and I dislike losing those lead actors, if you will, so early in ball games. It's less interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The calls are getting louder down the I-5 for the Seattle Mariners to go for it, spend some money, or at least, if I can paraphrase Jeff, do something this offseason. And this because their main rival in the AL West, if Houston even considers them a rival, the Astros, look to be recasting their team after a decade here.
Yeah.
Of being competitive. The trade of outfielder Kyle Tucker to the Chicago Cubs, and to be fair, they got a quality relief pitcher and a third baseman that they think is going to work in that park. But it doesn't sound like the Houston Astros intend to be a team that loads up. They still got a pretty good team. They're going to play this out by the looks of things, but they don't look like they will be the behemoth in the AL West that they have been. Of course, the Texas Rangers win a World Series and then come crashing back down to earth. And so is the time not now with this brilliant starting rotation. I wonder if Jerry DiPoto and his group considered that in all their planning, that you would have this window. We shall see. And then another trade by the Cubs. They sent Cody Bellinger to the New York Yankees for a prospect pitcher. You need some money on the deal as well. Cody Bellinger's wife used to date Giancarlo Stanton.
Oh. Awkward at the parties.
I mean, they're all adults. I'm sure everything will work out there. It's not like there's tabloids in New York City that would delve into that story, right?
No. Dig up salacious dirt. Nah.
Cody Fajardo.
You don't like Cody Fajardo?
Is off to Edmonton from the Montreal Alouettes. That's Grey Cup winner Cody Fajardo.
This is good news for Elks fans and probably Cody Fajardo. It's not so good news for Trey Ford.
Well, except for that Ed Hervey, the GM there in Edmonton, of course, former Lions GM Ed Hervey, says that he knows his role. He's coming in to be a backup.
Wow. Mm-hmm. He is 32, which is older. It's not older.
Yeah. He's coming in to be a backup to the young Canadian Trey Ford. So you have Canadian versus Canadian quarterback when Edmonton plays BC. At least that's how they're planning it now, if everybody stays healthy, which will be quite interesting. Haven't seen that a lot in our CFL life.
I don't know that the leash is a long one on Trey Ford, though.
No, I don't think you bring this guy in.
If you have full confidence.
I think you understand you're using both quarterbacks when you make this move.
Yeah.
Results of Tuesday's Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. The Canucks leading goal scorer. Right now, DeBrusk at 14, Sherwood at 11, Suter at 11, tied for second. Does one of them lead the Canucks in goals at the end of the season? What did the people say, Blake?
People said no.
Correct. Percentage?
70.
59%. Those who commented, those who voted yes and commented said DeBrusk.
Yeah.
Bain says, yes, the Bickersons are too preoccupied with each other and still some question of where Boeser will be at the end of the season.
It would be pretty unbelievable if the leading goal scorer was somebody not named Boeser, Miller, or Pettersson.
Yeah, for sure. Errors and omissions from yesterday's program. J-Pat wondered, how long have the three of us been doing this, and said 15 years? It's been 13 years. I mean,
in these roles.
You, me, and Jeff doing regular programming together is a 13-year proposition. I know you go back with Jeff further.
Yeah.
I do in a different capacity, but in terms of the Sekeres and Price world, the three of us, 13 years. And then you're the one with the children. So I am going to take your word for it, but I also would like a little bit of clarity.
Okay.
I forget what we were talking about in terms of the written word, but you said it was TLDR.
Yes. Too long, didn't read.
Okay. Is it not TDL, too damn long? Or TLTR, too long to read?
No, definitely not that.
It's not TDL?
TDL is something else. But if we're talking about like the movie was TDL, too damn long, then you could say that, I suppose. But no, if it's for a written, like for an email, you just press reply TLDR. TLDR. 100%. I stand by it.
TDL is more efficient. Just going to say. Anything further? Anything to self-report?
TLDR.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you taking some time connecting with us. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels. That's YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky. We're live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time.
And we're not
weekdays.
TDL.
Not today. Kept it in the corral. And, of course, please do support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.